Hey everybody, my name is Rachel, and today as we've been walking through the Word, I'd just like to invite us all to pause to pray for the needs of the most vulnerable children in our society, that is children in the care system, and as part of that the work of a charity called Home for Good. Home for Good is something that I've been involved with for I guess around 10 years now. I'm very passionate about what they do. Basically, they are concerned, their tagline, as it were, is that together we can find a home for every child that needs one. Now, behind that is some, I guess, pretty kind of stark statistics that roughly in the UK at the moment in time, a child comes into the care system every 15 minutes. Now, that just blows my mind. I've worked in social work, I've worked in the areas of helping children, I've supported people with fostering and adoption, but that statistic still staggers me. And many of those children will have suffered neglect or abuse that have meant that they've had to come into the care system. And just that process of coming to care means that they've suffered a significant amount of loss and potentially trauma in their lives. So that's a big thing that we need to be thinking about. Now, Home for Good kind of promote this through looking at adoption and looking at fostering and looking at supported lodgings for children and young people in this country. And they believe that we as a church, as our local church here in Leicester, but as the wider church in the world in essence, that we are perfectly placed to try and work towards that goal of making sure children have that home that they need. Now, our biblical mandate, what we have to do, what the Bible encourages us to do, is to care for the vulnerable, to extend hospitality and to seek justice. And those things compel us, or should compel us, into action. And through opening our hearts and home to children in the care system, and through our churches becoming a lot more welcoming and a supportive community to children in the care system, to care experienced children and their families, and we can make a transformational difference with them. Now, I love family, I love the concept of it, I love that it was designed by our Father, I love that it's designed to be a perfect place where people can flourish, and I know that isn't always the case, but the Bible talks about how God, particularly in Psalm 68 verse 6, he says he is a father to the fatherless, a defender of widows, is God in his holy dwelling. God sets the lonely in families. Now, some of those words, fatherless and orphans, we might not necessarily use them today in quite the same way, but they were there to describe people, children in particular, that didn't have the stability and the protection of a family. But we recognise that as a part of that, then children who are coming into the care system are also in need of that stability and protection. And we're called, as part of our adoption into God's great family, we're called to care for the vulnerable as part of our worship, to defend those who are unable to defend themselves, and to seek justice for them on their behalf. Now, children in the care system are amongst the most vulnerable, as I've said. They need advocates, they need champions, and they need families. And that is what the Home for Good is trying to encourage us as churches to have that on our agenda. So I think one difference that we can all make, it can seem a big kind of just a big issue, a big difficulty. We don't really know where to start with, but one area that we can all start with is praying. So I'd like to invite you to pray for 3 points with me today. One, that the church in the UK in particular will be mobilised to respond to the needs of vulnerable children, whether that's through families stepping forward to foster, to adopt, to provide supported lodgings, or whether that's the churches wrapping around those families that are already doing that. I'd like to, second thing is to pray for the wider issues, pray for social work teams, pray for the government who are making decisions on behalf of these vulnerable children. Pray that that biblical mandate to protect the vulnerable will be at the heart of the decisions that they make, and for just those people that are at the front line, that they would have the strength to keep on doing those jobs and making those decisions. And the final point I would like us to pray for today is about praying for those needs of those children in the care experienced children that have had that trauma, that have had loss, that they would really sense that kind of breakthrough that their long-term prognosis is sometimes quite gloomy, that would be sort of broken through in the name of Jesus, who loves them so dearly. And as part of that, I guess praying for the needs of those children in our own church family who have been through the fostering or adoption system, or are in supported lodgings, and their families as well, that we would just be able to support them well, that God would enable them to thrive in our church community and thrive in the families that he's placed them in. So if you'd join me in praying for those 3 areas today, that would be so good. Thank you, everybody.